Well, good morning guys and welcome to the Langstrath Valley, and it's a gorgeous day today. Actually, when we drove in it was cloudy this morning. We thought it was going to be nice and moody, but it's actually started to open out. And this area I visited a few weeks ago when I came up here with a client, and it kind of stood out to me to come back to this area. One, because we kind of passed this area of woodland here, and I could see there was lots of bluebells ready to bloom, but they hadn't actually come out at that point. So definitely somewhere worth coming back to for that, because there's this lovely pine forest through here and some really nice bluebells. And obviously because of this change in light now, we've got these clouds above us, we're getting some nice light cast through the bluebells and actually onto a tree which is off in the distance there. So what I'll actually do is press record on the back of here now so you can see what I'm looking at. So off in the distance, kind of almost in the middle, and of course as soon as I press that, my camera has now decided to do a centre clean. Right, there we go, so it's back again. So off in the distance, just between these two trees here, you can see there's a lovely shaped tree, a really gnarly tree, and I think that's an oak tree in the middle of this pine forest. And it's got lovely shapes about it, and that's catching light every now and then when these clouds part and the sun comes through. Also, we've got all of this bracken in the lowest part of the image here. Now, ordinarily I prefer ferns to bracken, but you've got to kind of work with what you have here. And then obviously the bluebells, and there's a few rocks on the forest floor and everything through there, so those are looking really nice there. I'm focusing about a third of the way into the scene, 4:3 aspect ratio there. I'm at ISO 100, f16 at a 1/6 of a second at the minute, just waiting for the wind to settle down and not be as bad, but it's coming and going here at the minute. I've put a polarizer on basically because I want to saturate those blues as much as possible, because they're not in the immediate foreground, they're more off in the distance, so I want to make the most of that colour as it happens. And at the minute, it's just been a case of waiting around for this light to change. And when I get the optimum light, then I'll grab a shot. So hopefully when I get that, I'll pop the shot up for you. So guys, we've moved on further up the valley now from where those bluebells were before. I've come to this area that I actually brought a client last time, and there's some beautiful waterfalls and everything back here. Now obviously we've got really harsh light, as you can see at the minute, so it's going to be a case of looking around for smaller intimate scenes that I can kind of use this harsh light for. Wider scenes at the minute are too much of a challenge because you've got too much dynamic range happening. So I'm going to focus in on these little small scenes. There's lots of little ferns in the rocks. There's lots of pattern and detail shots. So I'm going to focus on those at the minute, get one set up, get you to the back of the camera and kind of walk you through. I think I've found one over there in this direction here of a fern in some rocks, so I'll get that set up and start to walk you through that. Right guys, so I've got this shot lined up. And this is the one I was telling you about with the fern in the middle of the rock that I've got here. And I'm kind of focusing as close as I can get. I'm having to wait for the wind to kind of die down though, because obviously it's a little windy. I'll just see, hopefully you'll be able to see this if I press record on the back of here now. It's really difficult to see, it's so bright. Right, it's recording now. So hopefully what you should see is I've got a square crop lined up. I'm focused in and actually centered the fern right in the middle of the frame. Now obviously that's not the usual thing you would try and do. You'd probably try and off-center it, but I think This shot actually works really well with it centered in the middle of these rocks. The harsh light's kind of working with me for this shot, because what I'm actually doing is just underexposing slightly, because my thinking is in post what I'll end up doing is darkening the rocks around it to make that fern sort of pop, because the fern's really the subject of what I'm focusing on, so that's what I want to draw the viewer's attention to. The thing I like about it as well is it's got a lovely shadow to one of the leaves that are hanging off from the left hand side of the frame, and that really adds a little bit of depth to the frame, and it also adds that little bit of extra interest as well. So I'm at ISO 100 at the minute, f16, shutter speed is 100th of a second, and I'm nearly 2 stops under. I've been going between a stop and 2 stops under, just because this light is so harsh and direct. Once I've got this shot, I'll pop it up for you. Right guys, as you can see, this is going to be a little bit precarious, but what hopefully you can see if I press record on the back of here now, there we go, is this little fern, another fern in the rocks here. Now obviously I've got a darker background than I had with the previous shot. I've got more moss on the lower side of the frame, and we've got some direct light coming in. I've got this sort of area is kind of almost in a little crevice area, and it's quite nice because you're getting some of this direct light coming through and just illuminating the fern itself. And I've just tried all sorts of different things here. I mean, the actual background it's against as well is quite interesting, because it's got lichen on the rocks and all sorts of details like that. So I've just been taking a couple of shots. Obviously again, having to wait for the wind to settle down because it's moving the foliage, and because I'm in this kind of relatively dark area, I can't really get that faster shutter speed. I can by increasing my ISO, but because I'm in the dark here, I really want to do that as a last resort if I can. I'm going to try using a polarizer to see if I can eliminate a little bit of the glare off the foliage. I might be pushing it here, I'm not sure, I'll have to give it a go. Yeah, it looks quite nice at that though. It's just saturating the colours as well, and because it's so lush and vibrant at this time of year anyway, these ferns really pop. So using a square crop again, because I think that works really well for this type of image, and plus there's not really that much of interest either side to include it in the frame, so I think reducing it to a square crop is working really well in this case. And again, just waiting for the right light and the wind to die down enough to be able to grab the shot, and then just grabbing those shots when I get the opportunity to do so. Now you can maybe see, after I've got that fern shot, just up here, there's this beautiful old tree. And I've kind of wanted to photograph that before, and I've never really known which angle to get it. So I'm going to go actually up onto the hillside up here and shoot back towards it, because I think it's got real potential, but it's being able to separate it from that background enough. But we'll go up this hillside and see if I can kind of almost get at the same sort of level as that tree, so we can kind of shoot right across at it rather than up at it or down at it. We'll try and get at the same level and see if that works somehow. Right guys, I'll try and walk you through this shot before there's another influx of people, because it's like the M6 here, to be honest. Been people coming through all day and it's pretty difficult to get a bit filmed, so I'll press record on the back of here. So I've come up the bank now from where I was down below, and I've got myself level with the tree now. Now I've tried the panorama format, and you're getting a lot of stone on the left hand side, although you are getting the full sweep of the branch in. But I've kind of put it together as a square crop, and I think it actually works better because you're eliminating that rock from the left hand side, and if I tilt the camera back I can eliminate most of the distractions of the rock down on the lower section. Now looking through there now, I've got my focus point just at the lower section of that tree that's on the right hand side there, almost to where the roots are, and that's kind of sitting on the lower third of the image. So I've focused a third of the way in there. I'm ISO 100, 10th of a second at f16, and it's just a case of waiting for the light. It's harsh at the minute, but every now and then there's clouds coming across and actually putting the tree into partial shade. And actually that looked actually nicer before, because the problem you've got is when you've got such harsh light, the trees are all being illuminated behind it, in front of it, so you're getting no separation between the front and the back. When that shade comes down and you wait for a bit of the light to illuminate either the front or the back of the section, at least you're getting some sort of separation there. But yeah, it's just a waiting game. It seems to be that way in this sort of light. You've just got to wait for the right moment to be able to grab the image. And most of it's just waiting around for that light to fade slightly, especially when it's this harsh. So hopefully this shot will have worked out. I've been here for about half an hour trying to take the shot now, but hopefully we'll get those sort of right conditions and I'll pop the shot up for you. So guys, we've actually moved further up the valley now, and as we've come up, we've come to this scene where I was shooting a few weeks back, but I didn't have any light and none of these bluebells were down here on the left hand side. And on top of that, this directional sunlight is actually causing us a real sort of advantage today, in that it's illuminating all these bluebells on the hillside here. Let me just press record so you can see what I'm talking about. Right, okay, you should see that now. So you should see that I've got a tree almost in the centre of the frame, almost where the valley intersects. And what's nice about that is it's below the level of the hills behind it, so there's a good bit of separation. There's also, down in that valley back there, you can see there, just on the image, further back there's a bit of haze, and that's kind of adding to depth. So yeah, I think it's really looking quite good. I've got it set out as a pano format because I think that works really well for this scene in particular. You can see in the lower left of the frame, I'm going to have to clone out a couple of little white rocks, or at least darken them down if nothing else. And I'm using a CPL just to make all these bluebells and everything pop a bit more, because they're a little bit washed out when that bright sunlight's hitting them. So just using the CPL to reduce the glare and increase the saturation on those colours. And that's really helping. And not only that, it's actually giving me a lot more texture and detail in the clouds behind there as well. So looking quite good. So I've got ISO 100, f16 at a 30th of a second, and I'm shooting a stop under because obviously it's quite bright out here today. So just to be on the safe side, I'm shooting a stop under, but probably won't need it. And I'm just waiting for that light to come in and out of the clouds and illuminate these bluebells. But yeah, really happy with this shot. I'll pop it up now for you. So as you can see behind me here, this little hawthorn, I think it is, which is out in bloom at the minute and quite white there. I'm using that background there to try and isolate the tree itself, but it's more of a waiting game today. It has been all day. We've been waiting around for this light to come through. And because there's so much cloud around, this light's changing constantly. So it's very much a case of just waiting. And that's all you have to do is just put the time in and wait. We've only been in this one area the whole day and just worked around it. We've not gone far at all. There's been plenty to photograph. It's just about staying in that one location and looking around and spending that time. Because I think when you come to an area like this, there's so much that you can photograph rather than rushing around just trying to get shots here, there and everywhere. Spend more time in one location, and it gives you that freedom then to kind of just slow down and look around you and find the shots. And just give more time to these shots that you're actually finding. If you're finding something that works, like this shot back here, which is working in a square format for me, just wait for the light to happen, especially if it's a changeable day like this today, and you will get that shot. So yeah, we've just been waiting here now, probably for 3/4 of an hour, and we're getting this light coming through. I just want to show you the composition on the back of the camera now. Press record. Right, so what you should see, square crop again. And this tree, I'm just trying to isolate against that background of the mountains behind. So what I'm doing is f16, I'm at ISO 500 at the minute to get a 30th of a second, but I've increased that so you can see what's happening. Usually I was about a stop under there, but we're just waiting for that light, and it's just happening a little bit now. You can just see the light is illuminating the hills in the background and adding a bit of separation between that tree and the background. So I either want one of two things. I either want light on the tree itself and then a dark background, or light background and a dark tree. Something to kind of separate the two. But it's changing all the time, as I was saying before. So it's just a case of waiting around to see what actually the light does. But it's working really quite well, this. And it's just, what I've done is set the tree itself over to the right-hand side so that you've got a little bit of negative space on the left. I didn't want it dead centred because I've taken a shot already which is quite centred today. So I wanted this tree off to the right slightly, just to draw the eye into the rest of the frame, really. I mean, there's interest on the lower section of the frame, which is all the bluebells, which is along the floor there. So it would be really nice if we could get some light on those, just to add a little bit of depth as well. But it's just a case of waiting around, and you will get the shot. So guys, we're going to leave it there because we've lost the light with filming and shooting up in a valley there. The light's completely gone off the foreground now, so we're going to leave it there. Hope you've enjoyed this week's video. Like and subscribe if you have, and I'll see you on the next video soon. Take care. Bye bye.